If I was going to use one word to describe the landscape of Sicily, it would be rugged. But if I had two words, I would call it ruggedly beautiful.
Hello and welcome. I'm Phil and I'm on a grey gap year, and these are my tips for exploring the east coast of Sicily. This was my first trip to Sicily, and my time was filled with exploring the rugged beauty of the island, drinking a beer on an active volcano, and visiting movie locations from one of my most favourite movies of all time. I ate wonderful food, drank some really good wine, and experienced all the east coast of Sicily had to offer. Sicily really does have something for everyone, whether you want to lounge by the pool, visit unique historic sites, or explore the tiny streets of ancient towns. Planning your trip. Sicily is an Italian island on the toe of the Italian mainland in the Mediterranean Sea. It is much bigger than I first thought, and it takes about 4 hours to drive from the east coast to the west coast. So if you're planning day trips around the island, then take care to consider the amount of time you'll need to travel around the different parts of the island that you want to visit. Now, when I originally planned this 5-day trip, I envisioned spending a few days in the east coast of the island and a couple of days in the capital, Palermo. However, 5 days just wasn't enough to do all of this, so I just shelved Palermo, and I'm going to do that on a future trip. Arriving at the airport. If you're going to explore the east coast like I did, then you'll probably find public transport limited but usable, and day trips plentiful. However, I think that renting a car and exploring in that way is going to be much better. Now, I flew into Catania Airport, and the car hire offices weren't particularly well signposted. If you do fly into Catania and you've rented a car, turn right out of security, head towards Terminal C and just keep walking. Once you're past Terminal C, you should see the car hire location just sort of a bit in the distance. And this is probably where you're going to first encounter Italian time. If you're expecting good, fast and efficient customer service like you get in the UK or the US, then think again, because Italian time means the staff feel there is no need to rush, regardless of the number of customers waiting or how long they've been waiting for. Now, I waited well over an hour in the budget car hire queue, and I experienced it absolutely everywhere I went, and to fight it was pointless. Throughout my trip, if I saw a queue of 6 people, I would just think, oh, this is going to take ages, and it usually did. Driving on the roads of Sicily. Once you've hired your car, driving on the roads is going to be the next heart-stopping adventure you're going to have in Sicily. Road rules just don't really seem to exist, and often road markings and signposts didn't always exist either. My advice would be just to take your time, keep to the right, and then try and keep out of the way of all the other drivers who will fly past you while you're learning to navigate the roads of Sicily.
So to stop, we're at a stop sign. Well, stop means give way, and give way means keep going in Sicily. Let me assure you of that. Again. Oh, here we go, and there's a stop sign. To get onto a motorway or to a busy fast dual carriageway, it's got a stop sign. If it's a 50-50 of whose right of way it is, it isn't yours. This motorbike, oh god, let's watch him. People actually getting that motor. Oh, look at that! I don't know if you got that. Oh man! Just pulled straight out into traffic. This guy's just going to open his door on me. There you go.
I didn't record my first journey from the airport to the hotel, but I really should have. It was both exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. A little point about Google Maps. So I had to use Google Maps as my sat-nav tool, and it was perfectly adequate, but it did take me on some very interesting routes, some very narrow roads, and roads that didn't really look like they could possibly be a two-way road, but they were. Food. The food in Sicily is nothing short of exquisite, and that is everywhere you go. You can eat in a beautiful restaurant in the mountains of Taormina. You could eat at Bar Vitelli, which is a movie location from the movie The Godfather. But there's also tiny little pizzerias down dark side streets, or you can even just get some meat and bread from a local bakery. You are going to struggle to find a poor meal on the island of Sicily.
Even the bread is just feels great. It's got a really crisp crust, but it's really firm and moist in the centre. when you tear a piece off and bite into it, it kind of makes you work for it, but you don't mind because it's so good. And this, obviously cooked locally, traditional, fantastic. It's not even cut into slices. You have a knife and fork, and you just tuck in. Oh, that is amazing. It's got saltiness. It's got cheesy, soft cheese flavours. It's got capers, olives. What more could you want? Simple food, cooked perfectly.
Movie locations. Probably the most famous movie to be filmed on the island is The Godfather, and you can visit some of the locations from that film. The two main villages to visit are Savoca and Forza d'Agro. Now, Savoca is the home of Bar Vitelli and the Church of Santa Lucia. Forza d'Agro is a location of the town square of Corleone with the Cathedral of Santa Maria. And even if you're not a fan of the movies, then these two towns were picked as location shoots for a reason, and that is that they are both absolutely gorgeous.
So behind me is the bar. It's called Bar Vitelli in Savoca. This is the bar that Carlo, Fabrizio and Michael walk up to. You can see the alleyway just to my right here. They walk up there. It's a dusty track in the 70s when it's filmed, and then they come into this bar, which is much changed, probably deliberately so, just to change it from the movie, but that doesn't stop people coming here.
More recently, Sicily played host to season 2 of the TV show The White Lotus, which was set predominantly in the town of Taormina. Now, whether you've watched the show or not, Taormina is a must-see town. It's perched atop a mountain, has breathtaking views, and it's got all these tiny little streets with balconies, and it's something you become accustomed to seeing in Sicily and also in the show. Now, in the show, they also visited the town's ancient amphitheatre. It was built around the 3rd century BC. It's Greek in origin, and it was built as a theatre by the Greeks, but then it was remodelled by the Romans so that it was suitable for gladiators and games. It's still used for performances today. History everywhere you look. And this is typical of Sicily. It's not just in Taormina. There's history everywhere you look. Syracuse has its own amphitheatre and temples in the Neapolis Archaeological Park, and the whole area of Syracuse is recognised as UNESCO World Heritage Site. On the nearby island of Ortigia, which is part of Syracuse, there is a temple to Apollo dating back to the 6th century, and Castello Maniace, which is a castle built in the 13th century. Sicily is actually home to 7 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, 2 of which are the Valley of the Temples and the Villa Romana di Casale. The Valley of the Temples is on the site of the ancient city of Agrigas. It contains a number of temples that still stand today, but in different states of repair or ruin. But it is well worth the long drive out to Agrigento. The walk from one end of the valley to the other is about 2.5 kilometres. Along the way, make sure you stop and take in the Temple of Concordia and the Temple of Juno. A slight detour from the main track takes you to the Temple of Zeus, which is now mostly ruined, but it was absolutely huge. It also had an exterior altar, so an altar out the front. Now, as you stand in the centre of the ruin, you get a sense of scale and how big this temple really was. Away from the Valley of the Temples is the Roman villa, the Villa Romana di Casale. Now, this contains some of the best preserved and largest and most varied collection of mosaic floors in the world. The villa and its mosaics owed their preservation to it being covered in landslips and floods until they were discovered and then professionally excavated starting in about 1929. The villa contains both summer and winter quarters for the family that lived there, and it also has this long room which is covered in various mosaics. But my personal favourite of the tour was the Basilica, or the Grand Audience Hall. The elaborate entrance to this room had columns of pink Egyptian granite.
This is the main chamber, the Great Hall, you could think of it as. It's where you'd be greeted if you'd come to visit the owner of this villa or the ruler of this land. If you want to give this room some kind of idea of purpose, think throne room in Game of Thrones, and you're about halfway there. The flooring in here There's not small mosaic tiles, but marble. I would have loved to have seen this. Walked in. You couldn't help but feel intimidated just a little bit. Truly magnificent.
Exploring a live volcano. Another UNESCO World Heritage Site on Sicily is the active volcano Mount Etna. Yes, you heard me right, it is still active. Although you can walk up if you're feeling energetic, there's also a cable car that will take you to about 2,500 metres, and then there's a four-wheel drive bus tour which will guide you around some of the different parts of the volcano. The second stop for us was the crater that was actually spewing lava in 2001. It's still hot today and there's steam vents at the side of this crater. One query I had before I went on the tour was, am I going to need my hiking boots and am I going to need a good jacket? Although I took both, I didn't really need either for the tour that I went on. Now, although I did see some people wearing sandals, yeah, of course they were, and there were some people wearing Converse pumps, I think both of these are a mistake. Just some good firm trainers are going to do you fine. Now, the weather when I went was really pleasant and a thick sweater would have been fine, but a waterproof is still a good idea. Now, if you don't have one, you can hire them at the cable car station. So if you're there and the weather comes in, you can hire a waterproof jacket.
It's a bit early for me, but how often do you get to drink a beer 2,500 metres above sea level on an active volcano? Not very often, so this is what Grey Gap Year is all about.
I had an incredible time in Sicily and I plan to both visit Palermo for a few days, but I'm also planning to return to the east coast of Sicily. Now, I think that is the highest praise you can give somewhere, saying that you do intend to return. I have so much footage from my time here, but I'm finding my feet with making videos at the moment, and I kind of need your help in developing future videos. So if you could leave me a comment and tell me the kinds of videos that you would like to see, then that would be a tremendous help. Would a video all about those Godfather locations be interesting, or a longer video about Mount Etna? Maybe an in-depth video just focusing in on those traveller tips is what would really be of benefit to you. And if you could leave me a comment on that, I'd find that really helpful. And since you've made it this far, I'd like to ask you to consider giving me a like and perhaps subscribing to my channel so you can get notifications when new videos come out. So all that's left for me to say is thank you for watching and joining me on my Grey Gap Year.